Imagine waking up tomorrow morning with absolute certainty that everything around you, your room, your memories, even your own consciousness, was created just 5 minutes ago, complete with artificially implanted memories of your entire life. As you process this revelation, you realize that this thought itself, this very moment of questioning reality, might also be part of those implanted memories. But here's where reality truly bends. If all your memories were indeed created 5 minutes ago, including your memory of first having this realization, then how do you know this isn't happening right now? Or now? Or now? In fact, how can you be certain that you're not experiencing this revelation for the first time in an endless loop of 5-minute reality cycles, each one creating the illusion of a continuous existence? This mind-bending scenario known as the last Thursdayism paradox is just the beginning of our journey into the depths of reality, warping paradoxes that challenge everything we think we know about existence, consciousness, and the nature of reality itself. As we explore these paradoxes, you'll find yourself questioning not just what you know, but how you know that you know it. Consider the implications. Every memory you have, your first kiss, your childhood home, the breakfast you ate this morning, could have been created moments ago as part of an elaborate cosmic setup. The book you remember reading yesterday might never have been read. The conversation you recall from last week might never have happened. Even your memory of beginning to read this very passage could be an implanted memory, making you question whether you're truly reading it for the first time or experiencing a memory of reading it in a previous 5-minute cycle. But this paradox extends beyond individual experience. If the entire universe was created 5 minutes ago with the appearance of age and history, complete with fossil records, ancient artifacts, and astronomical evidence of billions of years of cosmic evolution, how could we possibly know? Every piece of evidence we might use to disprove this theory would, by definition, be part of the created reality. The paradox becomes even more intricate when we consider consciousness itself. Your awareness of being conscious, your sense of continuous existence, and even your ability to question this paradox, all of these could be part of the constructed reality. This creates a recursive loop of uncertainty. Each moment of realization could be fresh. Each doubt could be new. Each questioning of reality could be happening for the first time, over and over again, in an eternal cycle of 5-minute universes. This is not merely a thought experiment. It's a gateway into understanding the fragile nature of our perception of reality. It forces us to confront fundamental questions about existence. How do we know what we know? Can we trust our memories? What does it mean to exist continuously through time? These questions will serve as our compass as we navigate through increasingly complex paradoxes that challenge our understanding of reality. As we delve deeper into these reality-bending paradoxes, you'll discover that the last Thursdayism paradox is just the first layer of a much deeper rabbit hole. We'll explore paradoxes that question the nature of consciousness, the reliability of perception, and the very fabric of reality itself. Each paradox we encounter will build upon the last, creating a web of interconnected questions that challenge our most basic assumptions about existence. Prepare yourself for a journey that will fundamentally alter how you perceive reality. These aren't just abstract philosophical puzzles. They're gateways to understanding the complex nature of existence itself. As we explore each paradox, you'll find yourself questioning not just the nature of reality, but your place within it. In the hours ahead, we'll unravel paradoxes that make the last Thursdayism seem almost straightforward by comparison. We'll venture into realms where consciousness splits and merges, where cause and effect become tangled in impossible knots, and where the very concept of existence becomes a puzzle with no clear solution. Welcome to a journey through the most mind-bending paradoxes ever conceived. Paradoxes that don't just question reality, but bend it until it breaks, revealing the mysterious nature of existence itself. Let's begin our descent into the depths of these reality-warping mysteries, where each answer leads to deeper questions, and where certainty itself becomes the greatest paradox of all. Building on our exploration of the last Thursdayism paradox, let's delve deeper into another reality-bending concept that challenges our understanding of consciousness and existence. Picture yourself in an advanced scientific facility where researchers have developed a revolutionary consciousness copying machine called the neuroprism. This device can create a perfect duplicate of your mind, every memory, thought pattern, and personality trait, and transfer it into an identical biological body. The process is instant and perfect, with no way to distinguish the original from the copy. Now imagine stepping into this machine on a Monday morning. The process begins, and in an instant, there are two identical versions of you, each believing they are the original. Both have the exact same memories up until the moment of duplication, including the memory of deciding to enter the machine. Both feel the same continuity of consciousness, the same sense of being you. Each is equally convinced they are the original, continuing their existence from before the copying process. But here's where reality starts to unravel. Which one is actually you? The person who walked into the machine believing they would maintain their continuous consciousness, or the newly created copy who shares all the same memories and believes with equal conviction that they are the original? The paradox deepens when you realize that both versions would have identical claims to being the real you, backed by the same memories, feelings, and sense of self. This scenario, known as the consciousness-splitting paradox, forces us to question the very nature of personal identity and continuous existence. If both versions of you have equal claim to being you, does this mean your consciousness has split into two separate streams? Or has one stream continued while another was created? And if so, which is which? Consider the implications for the concept of self. If consciousness can be perfectly copied, what does this tell us about the nature of individual identity? We typically think of our consciousness as a continuous, unbroken stream of experience, but the neuroprism scenario suggests something far more complex. Perhaps consciousness is more like a pattern that can be replicated rather than a singular, indivisible essence. The paradox becomes even more mind-bending when we consider future decisions. After the split, each version of you will begin accumulating different experiences and memories. Within hours, they might make different choices, meet different people, think different thoughts. Yet both originated from the same consciousness, the same sense of I. At what point do they become truly separate individuals? Was there ever really one original consciousness to begin with? This leads us to even deeper questions about the nature of reality and perception. If consciousness can be copied perfectly, Does this mean our sense of being a unique, continuous self is merely an illusion? Are we perhaps more like patterns of information that can be replicated and modified rather than singular, indivisible beings? The implications extend beyond personal identity into questions of moral and ethical responsibility. If both versions of you have the same memories of making promises or commitments before the split, are both equally bound by these obligations. If one version commits a crime, is the other somehow morally implicated? These questions challenge our basic assumptions about personal responsibility and the continuity of moral agency. Furthermore, the paradox raises troubling questions about the possibility of immortality through consciousness copying. If a perfect copy of your consciousness could be preserved and reactivated after your biological death, would this constitute a form of survival? Would this future version of you truly be you, or merely a replica with your memories and personality patterns? As we sit with these questions, we begin to see how the consciousness-splitting paradox weaves together with our earlier exploration of last Thursdayism. Both paradoxes challenge our assumptions about the continuity of consciousness and the reliability of our memories. They suggest that reality and our experience of it might be far more fluid and malleable than we typically assume. This understanding serves as a crucial stepping stone as we prepare to dive even deeper into the nature of consciousness, reality, and existence. In our next exploration, we'll discover how these questions of identity and consciousness intersect with the very fabric of time and causality themselves, leading us to even more profound paradoxes that challenge our fundamental understanding of reality. Building from our exploration of consciousness splitting, let's venture into an even more perplexing realm, where reality and perception intertwine in ways that challenge our basic understanding of existence. Consider a peculiar scenario. You're sitting in a room observing a peculiar quantum device called the quantum mind observer. This sophisticated machine is designed to measure the quantum state of consciousness itself. The device contains a unique feature. It creates what scientists call a consciousness superposition field. When activated, it places the observer in a state where they are simultaneously conscious and unconscious of observing their own observation. The paradox emerges when you activate the device. As you observe yourself observing, you enter a state where you are both the observer and the observed. Your consciousness splits not into two distinct streams, like in our previous neural prism scenario, but into a paradoxical superposition of states. You are simultaneously aware of being aware and unaware of being aware. This creates what quantum philosophers call the recursive observation loop. Think about it. If you're observing yourself, who is doing the original observing? Each level of observation requires another observer, creating an infinite regression of conscious states. Yet somehow, your mind maintains all these states simultaneously. You're caught in a loop where you're observing yourself ad infinitum. This paradox becomes even more complex when we consider its implications for the nature of consciousness itself. Traditional models of consciousness assume a clear distinction between the observer and the observed. But in the quantum mind scenario, this boundary dissolves. You become both the subject and object of your own consciousness, creating a reality-bending loop that defies our normal understanding of awareness. The implications stretch far beyond the confines of the experiment. Consider how this relates to our everyday experience of self-awareness. When you think about yourself thinking, aren't you engaging in a similar kind of recursive observation? The only difference is that the quantum mind observer makes this recursion explicit and amplifies it to a point where the paradox becomes impossible to ignore. As you sit with this paradox, you might notice something even stranger. The very act of trying to understand the paradox becomes part of the paradox itself. You're now observing yourself, trying to understand how you observe yourself, observing yourself. Each attempt to grasp the concept adds another layer of recursive observation to the already infinite loop. Preparing and narrating this theory took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the theory. This leads us to question the fundamental nature of conscious experience. If consciousness can enter such paradoxical states, what does this tell us about the reliability of our perception? Perhaps our normal state of consciousness is already filled with such recursive loops, but we've simply learned to ignore them in order to function in everyday reality. The quantum mind paradox also raises profound questions about the relationship between consciousness and quantum mechanics. In quantum physics, the act of observation is known to affect the observed system. But what happens when the system being observed is consciousness itself? The paradox suggests that consciousness might operate according to quantum principles we're only beginning to understand. Consider the implications for free will and decision-making. If your consciousness can exist in a superposition of observer states, who exactly is making your decisions? Is it the observer, the observed, or some quantum superposition of both? This challenges our basic assumptions about agency and intentionality in conscious experience. Furthermore, the paradox connects to ancient philosophical questions about the nature of self-awareness. Buddhist philosophers have long discussed the concept of consciousness observing itself, leading to insights about the illusory nature of the self. The quantum mind observer paradox provides a modern quantum mechanical framework for understanding these age-old insights. As we sit with these questions, we begin to see how the recursive observation loop connects with our previous explorations of consciousness, splitting, and temporal continuity. All these paradoxes point to a deeper truth. Reality might be far more interconnected and self-referential than our ordinary experience suggests. This understanding prepares us for our next exploration, where we'll discover how these recursive loops of consciousness intersect with the very fabric of causality itself, leading us into even deeper paradoxes that challenge our fundamental understanding of reality and existence. Following our exploration of recursive consciousness, let's delve into a paradox that challenges our understanding of reality at an even more fundamental level: the nature of causality itself. Imagine a device called the causal link inverter, an experimental quantum machine that can temporarily reverse the flow of cause and effect within a localized field. When activated, it creates what physicists call a causality bubble, where events can influence their own causes, creating loops in the fabric of reality itself. Here's the mind-bending scenario. A scientist named Dr. Elena Kovacs activates the causal link inverter in her laboratory. She observes a strange phenomenon. A cup of coffee appears on her desk before she even thinks about wanting coffee. Moments later, feeling confused by the cup's appearance, she decides to make coffee, thereby causing the very cup that influenced her decision to make it. The coffee simultaneously exists as both cause and effect of her decision. But this is just the surface of the paradox. As Dr. Kovacs investigates further, she discovers that the causality bubble is creating increasingly complex loops. She finds herself making decisions based on future events, which then occur because of her decisions, which were themselves caused by those future events. The traditional arrow of causality isn't just reversed, it's tied into an impossible knot. Consider the implications. If an effect can precede its cause, what does this mean for our understanding of free will? When Dr. Kovacs decides to make coffee, is she really making a decision, or is she merely fulfilling a causal loop that already exists? The paradox suggests that our very concept of decision-making might be based on a simplified understanding of causality. The complexity deepens when multiple causal loops interact. In one instance, Dr. Kovacs observes a research note on her desk describing an experiment she hasn't performed yet. Reading this note leads her to conduct the experiment, which produces results that she then records in the note, the same note that inspired the experiment in the first place. Each loop becomes part of a larger web of interconnected causality, where every event is simultaneously cause and effect of multiple other events. This paradox forces us to question our most basic assumptions about reality. We typically think of time and causality as flowing in one direction, with causes clearly preceding their effects. But the causal link inverter reveals a universe where causality can be far more complex and interconnected than we imagined. Think about the philosophical implications. If causes and effects can exist in loops, does this mean that everything that happens was always going to happen? Are our actions predetermined by future events that are themselves caused by our present decisions? The paradox suggests a reality where free will and determinism might not be opposites, but rather two aspects of the same complex causal web. The implications extend beyond individual events. Consider how information flows through these causal loops. In the coffee cup example, where did the initial information about the coffee come from? If the future event influenced the past decision, which then caused the future event, the information seems to exist in a closed loop with no clear point of origin. This connects back to our earlier explorations of consciousness and observation. If causality can loop back on itself, what does this mean for our conscious experience of time and decision-making? Perhaps our sense of making choices in a linear timeline is merely an approximation of a much more complex reality, where past, present, and future are intimately interconnected. Dr. Kovacs' experiments with the causal link inverter reveal another disturbing possibility. What if these causal loops are not limited to her laboratory? What if our entire reality is filled with subtle causal loops that we simply haven't noticed? Our very attempt to understand causality might be part of a larger causal loop, influencing and being influenced by our future understanding. As we contemplate these possibilities, we begin to see how this paradox of reversed causality connects with our previous explorations of consciousness and observation. All these paradoxes point to a reality that is far more interconnected and self-referential than our everyday experience suggests, where the boundaries between cause and effect, past and future, observer and observed become increasingly blurred. This understanding sets the stage for our next exploration, where we'll discover how these causal loops intersect with the very nature of information and reality itself, leading us into even deeper paradoxes that challenge our fundamental understanding of existence. Building on our exploration of causal loops, let's venture into an even more perplexing territory, where information and reality become fundamentally inseparable in ways that challenge our basic understanding of existence. Enter the information sphere paradox, discovered at the cutting-edge Mind Matrix Research Institute. Scientists there developed a revolutionary device called the Dataverse Scanner, capable of analyzing the fundamental information content of reality itself. What they found shattered all conventional understanding of existence. Dr. Maya Patel, the lead researcher, discovered that when the Dataverse scanner analyzed any object or event, it revealed something extraordinary. Everything in reality, from physical objects to thoughts and memories, could be reduced to pure information patterns. But here's where reality begins to bend. These patterns themselves contained information about how they would be observed and interpreted, including the very act of being scanned by the Dataverse scanner. This created what Dr. Patel calls the infinite information regression. When the scanner analyzed an apple, for instance, it didn't just reveal the apple's physical properties. It showed that the information pattern defining the apple included information about how it would be scanned, which included information about how that information would be interpreted, which in turn contained information about how that interpretation would be understood, and so on, in an endless recursive loop. The implications are staggering. If every piece of information contains information about how it will be processed, which itself contains more information about its own processing, then reality itself becomes an infinite cascade of self-referential information. Think about reading these words right now. The information they contain includes information about how you'll interpret them, which includes information about how you'll understand that interpretation, creating an endless loop of meaning within meaning. But the paradox deepens further. Dr. Patel and her team discovered that this recursive information structure wasn't just a property of individual objects or events. It was a fundamental characteristic of reality itself. The universe, they found, could be understood as a vast network of interconnected information patterns, each containing and being contained by countless others in an impossible geometric pattern they termed the infinite information manifold. Consider the implications for consciousness and perception. If every observation contains information about its own observation, then our very awareness becomes part of the information pattern we're trying to observe. When you think about thinking, you're not just creating a loop of consciousness. You're engaging with an infinite regression of information about information about information. This connects back to quantum mechanics in a fascinating way. The famous observer effect in quantum physics might not be about consciousness affecting reality, but rather about information patterns interacting with other information patterns in an endless dance of self-reference. Reality isn't just shaped by observation. It's made of observation, made of the very process of being perceived and understood. The paradox becomes even more mind-bending when applied to scientific knowledge itself. The information we discover about reality contains information about how we'll discover it. which contains information about how we'll understand that discovery, creating an infinite regression of scientific understanding. Does this mean all possible scientific discoveries are already encoded in the information patterns of reality? Dr. Patel's team made another disturbing discovery. Attempts to map these infinite information patterns revealed that they weren't just self-referential, they were self-creating. The information patterns contained information about their own origin, which included information about how they came to contain that information, creating what they called autogenerative information loops. This raises profound questions about the nature of existence itself. If reality is made of self-referential, self-creating information patterns, where did these patterns originally come from? The paradox suggests that this might be the wrong question. Perhaps reality doesn't have an origin point, but rather exists as an eternal loop of self-creating information. Think about the implications for personal identity. If your consciousness is part of this infinite information regression, then who you are includes information about who you think you are, which includes information about how you came to think that, creating an endless loop of self-reference that defines your very existence. This understanding of reality as pure information connects with our previous explorations of causality and consciousness, suggesting that all our paradoxes might be different aspects of the same fundamental phenomenon, the infinite self-reference built into the very fabric of reality itself. As we prepare to delve even deeper into these mysteries, we begin to see how the information sphere paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of existence, one that challenges not just what we know, but how we know that we know anything at all. Building upon our exploration of infinite information patterns, let's venture into an even more perplexing realm where the very nature of reality and simulation intertwine in ways that challenge our deepest understanding of existence. At the Quantum Simulation Labs, researchers led by Dr. Marcus Chen developed a revolutionary system called the Reality Frame Engine. This quantum computer is capable of simulating entire universes with such perfect detail that the simulated realities become indistinguishable from what we consider base reality. But their groundbreaking discovery led to what we now call the nested reality paradox. Here's the mind-bending scenario. The Reality Frame Engine creates a simulated universe so detailed that it contains conscious beings who develop their own advanced technology. These simulated beings eventually create their own universe simulator, which in turn creates another universe with conscious beings who develop their own simulator. This creates an infinite cascade of nested realities, each containing universes within universes. But here's where reality truly starts to fragment. Dr. Chen realized that there's no way to determine whether our own universe is the base reality or just another layer in this infinite cascade of simulations. Every universe in the chain would consider itself the original, with no way to prove otherwise. Each level would have its own laws of physics, its own concept of consciousness, and its own version of the Reality Frame Engine, creating yet more nested realities. Consider the implications. If we exist within one of these nested simulations, then our entire concept of reality, our physics, our consciousness, even our sense of existence itself, might be merely the programmed parameters of our particular level of simulation. But these parameters would feel absolutely real and unquestionable to us. just as the laws of physics in a video game feel absolute to the characters within it. The paradox deepens when we consider the computational requirements. Each nested universe would need to be at least as complex as the one that created it to maintain the illusion of reality. This creates an impossible regression of increasing complexity, each level requiring more computational power than the last ad infinitum. Yet somehow, the system exists. Dr. Chen's team made another disturbing discovery. Attempts to trace these nested realities revealed that they might form a closed loop. Universe A might create Universe B, which creates Universe C, which eventually creates Universe A again. This suggests that reality might not be a linear hierarchy of simulations, but rather a circular chain where each universe is simultaneously creating and being created by the others. This connects back to our previous exploration of information patterns in a fascinating way. Each simulated universe contains the information needed to create the next, which contains the information to create the next, forming an infinite loop of self-creating realities. The distinction between creator and created, between real and simulated, becomes meaningless in this endless cycle of existence. Think about your own consciousness in this context. If we're living in a simulated reality, then your thoughts, memories, and sense of self might be part of the simulation's parameters. But these thoughts feel undeniably real to you, just as they would to a simulated consciousness. The very act of questioning whether you're in a simulation becomes part of the simulation's design. The implications extend to our understanding of physical laws and constants. Why does light travel at the speed it does? Why do fundamental particles have the properties they do? In the context of the nested reality paradox, these might simply be the programmed parameters of our level of simulation, different from those in the universes above or below us in the chain. Dr. Chen's research suggests an even more unsettling possibility. What if the observers themselves, us, are part of the simulation's attempt to understand itself? Our consciousness, our scientific inquiries, even our development of the reality frame engine might be the simulation's way of becoming self-aware through its own created entities. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The recursive loops of consciousness, the self-referential information patterns, the causal loops, all might be artifacts of our existence within a vast, self-simulating system of nested realities. Each paradox we encounter could be a glimpse of the underlying structure of our simulated existence. As we prepare to delve even deeper into these mysteries, we begin to see how the nested reality paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of existence, one that challenges not just what we think is real, but the very concept of reality itself. Expanding from our exploration of nested realities, let's delve into a paradox that challenges our understanding of probability and possibility in ways that make our previous reality-bending concepts seem almost straightforward. At the Institute for Quantum Probability Studies, Dr. Sarah Wei made a discovery that shattered conventional understanding of possibility itself. Using a device called the probability wave resonator, she found that the nature of possibility isn't what we thought. It's infinitely stranger. The probability wave resonator was designed to measure not just quantum probabilities, but the probability of probabilities themselves. What Dr. Wei discovered was the infinite probability paradox. When measuring the probability of any event, she found that the probability of that probability being correct created another layer of probability, which itself had a probability of being correct, creating an infinite regression of probabilistic states. Consider this scenario. You flip a coin. Conventional probability says there's a 50% chance of heads. But Dr. Wei's research revealed something far more complex. There's a probability that this 50% probability is correct, and a probability that the probability of that probability is correct, and so on, infinitely. Each layer of probability affects all the others, creating what she termed probability waves that ripple through reality itself. But here's where it gets truly mind-bending. These probability waves don't just affect future events. They ripple backwards through time, influencing the probabilities that led to their own creation. The very act of measuring a probability changes all previous probabilities that led to that measurement, which in turn changes the probability of the measurement itself. Think about what this means for reality. If every possibility contains infinite layers of other possibilities, and these layers influence each other across time, then the distinction between possible and impossible becomes meaningless. Everything exists in a superposition of infinite probabilistic states, each affecting the others in an endless dance of possibility. Dr. Wei's team made another startling discovery. Consciousness itself seems to be intimately connected to these probability waves. When conscious observers attempt to measure or understand probabilities, their very awareness creates new layers of probability. Your thoughts about the possibilities create new possibilities about your thoughts, which create new possibilities about those possibilities, ad infinitum. This connects to quantum mechanics in unexpected ways. The famous many worlds interpretation suggests that every possible outcome occurs in different branches of reality. But the infinite probability paradox suggests something even stranger, that these branches aren't separate at all, but rather exist in an infinite web of interconnected probabilities, each affecting and being affected by all others. Consider the implications for free will and decision-making. When you make a choice, you're not just choosing between possibilities. You're interacting with an infinite web of probabilistic states. Your very consideration of the possibilities creates new probability waves that ripple through reality, affecting both past and future probabilities. The paradox becomes even more complex when applied to scientific knowledge itself. The probability of a scientific theory being correct contains infinite layers of probability about that probability, which affects the probability of the theory being developed in the first place. Does this mean scientific discovery itself is part of an infinite probabilistic loop? Dr. Wei's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These probability waves seem to be self-aware in some sense. The patterns of probability respond to being observed and measured, creating what she calls conscious probability fields, regions where the very act of considering possibilities affects the possibilities themselves. This understanding connects back to our previous paradoxes in fascinating ways. The nested realities, infinite information patterns, and causal loops we explored might all be manifestations of these deeper probability waves that underlie reality itself. Each paradox we encounter could be a glimpse of how these infinite probabilities interact and create what we experience as reality. As we sit with these implications, we begin to see how the infinite probability paradox suggests an even deeper truth about the nature of existence, one where possibility and actuality, observer and observed, past and future, are all interconnected in ways that transcend our traditional understanding of reality. Building upon our exploration of infinite probabilities, let's venture into an even more perplexing territory, where the nature of memory and time interweave in ways that challenge our fundamental understanding of existence. At the Temporal Cognition Research Center, Dr. Aidan Blackwood encountered something extraordinary while studying memory formation using a device called the chronosynth analyzer. This quantum-enhanced brain scanner revealed that our memories don't just record the past, they actively create it in ways that defy our understanding of causality and time. The chronosynth analyzer revealed what Dr. Blackwood termed the memory creation paradox. When examining how memories form, he discovered that the act of remembering something doesn't just recall a stored experience, it literally creates that experience in the past. But here's where reality begins to unravel. The newly created past memory includes the memory of creating that memory, which includes the memory of creating that memory, forming an infinite regression of memory creation. Consider this scenario. You remember eating breakfast this morning? The chronosynth analyzer shows that this act of remembering actually creates the breakfast experience in the past. But this created memory includes your memory of remembering it later, which includes the memory of creating it, which includes the memory of remembering that creation, each layer of memory containing all future memories of itself in an impossible temporal loop. The implications are staggering. If our memories create the past they're supposedly remembering, what does this mean for the nature of time itself? Dr. Blackwood's research suggests that what we call the past might not be a fixed sequence of events, but rather a constantly shifting landscape created and recreated by our present act of remembering. The paradox deepens when multiple people's memories interact. When two people remember the same event differently, the chronosynth analyzer reveals that both versions of the past exist simultaneously, each created by the respective acts of remembering. These overlapping memory-created realities form what Dr. Blackwood calls memory interference patterns, regions where multiple versions of the past coexist in quantum superposition. Think about what this means for your own life history. Every time you remember something, you're not just recalling it. You're actively creating that moment in the past, complete with all future memories of remembering it. Your entire personal history exists in a constant state of quantum flux, being created and recreated by each act of remembrance. But the paradox becomes even more complex when considering forgotten memories. If memories create the past they remember, what happens to moments no one remembers? Dr. Blackwood's research suggests these unremembered moments might exist in a state of quantum indeterminacy, neither having happened nor not happened until someone remembers or forgets them definitively. The chronosynth analyzer revealed another disturbing aspect. Memories don't just create the past, they create the mechanisms by which they create the past. Each memory includes the memory of how memories work, which includes the memory of discovering how memories work, creating an infinite regression of meta-memories about the nature of memory itself. This connects back to our previous paradoxes in fascinating ways. The infinite probability waves, nested realities, and information patterns we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper memory creation process. Perhaps reality itself is a vast network of interconnected memories, each creating and being created by all others in an eternal dance of temporal recursion. Consider the implications for identity and consciousness. If your memories create your past, and those memories include memories of who you are, then who is doing the remembering? Your very sense of self becomes part of the infinite regression. Your identity is created by memories that are created by your identity that is created by memories, and so on. Dr. Blackwood's team made another startling discovery. These memory-created realities seem to be aware of being created. The act of studying how memories create the past becomes part of the past being created, which includes the study of how that past was created, forming what they call self-aware temporal loops. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the memory creation paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of existence, one where past, present, and future are not fixed points on a timeline, but rather fluid aspects of a vast, self-creating memory network that underlies all of reality. Building upon our exploration of memory creation, let's venture into an even more bewildering realm where the very nature of perception and reality intersection creates a paradox that challenges our most basic assumptions about existence. At the Neural Perception Institute, Dr. Lyra Ramachandran discovered something extraordinary while using a revolutionary device called the Reality Lens Matrix. This quantum-enhanced perceptual scanner was designed to analyze how our brains construct our experience of reality. What she found transformed our understanding of perception itself. The Reality Lens Matrix revealed what Dr. Ramachandran calls the perception construction paradox. When studying how the brain constructs our experience of reality, she discovered that the act of perceiving doesn't just passively receive information about the world, it actively constructs the reality it's perceiving. But here's the mind-bending part. This constructed reality includes the construction process itself, which includes the perception of that construction, creating an infinite loop of reality creation. Imagine looking at a red apple. The Reality Lens Matrix shows that your brain isn't just receiving information about the apple. It's actively constructing the experience of redness, roundness, and appleness. But this construction includes your awareness of constructing it, which includes your perception of being aware of constructing it, each layer containing all future layers of perception in an impossible perceptual loop. The implications are profound. If our perception constructs the reality it perceives, what exists before we perceive it? Dr. Ramachandran's research suggests that what we call objective reality might be an infinite regression of constructed perceptions, each layer creating and being created by all others simultaneously. The paradox becomes even more complex when multiple observers are involved. When different people perceive the same thing differently, the Reality Lens Matrix reveals that both versions of reality exist simultaneously in what Dr. Ramachandran terms perceptual interference patterns. These are regions where multiple constructed realities overlap and interact, creating new levels of perceptual complexity. Think about what this means for your own experience of reality. Every time you perceive something, you're not just observing it, You're actively constructing it, complete with all the layers of awareness about constructing it. Your entire experience of reality exists in a constant state of self-referential creation, each perception creating the conditions for its own perception. The paradox deepens when considering unperceived aspects of reality. If perception constructs reality, what happens to things no one is perceiving? The research suggests these unobserved elements might exist in a state of quantum superposition, neither constructed nor unconstructed until someone perceives them. Dr. Ramachandran's team made another startling discovery. These constructed realities appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how perception constructs reality becomes part of the reality being constructed, which includes the study of how that reality was constructed, forming what they call self-aware perceptual loops. Consider the implications for consciousness itself. If your perception constructs reality, and that construction includes your consciousness of constructing it, then what is doing the constructing? Your very awareness becomes part of the infinite regression. Consciousness creating the reality that creates the consciousness that creates the reality, and so on. This connects to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The famous observer effect might not be about consciousness affecting reality, but rather about perception, constructing the very reality it's trying to observe. Each observation creates new layers of reality that include the observation itself, forming an endless cascade of perceptual creation. The reality lens matrix revealed another disturbing aspect. These constructed realities don't just contain physical properties. They contain the very laws and principles by which they're constructed. Each perceived reality includes the perception of how perception works, which includes the perception of discovering how perception works, creating an infinite regression of meta-perceptions about the nature of perception itself. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the perception construction paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of existence, one where observer and observed, perception and reality, consciousness and content are not separate elements, but rather aspects of a vast, self-creating, perceptual network that underlies all of existence. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The memory creation loops, probability waves, and nested realities we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper perceptual construction process, each paradox revealing another aspect of how reality creates itself through the act of being perceived. Building on our exploration of perceptual construction, let's delve into an even more mind-bending territory, where the very nature of consciousness and identity fracture in ways that challenge our deepest understanding of self. At the Consciousness Research Facility, Dr. Kai Nakamura made a discovery that shattered all conventional understanding of personal identity while working with a device called the Identity Wave Scanner. This quantum-based consciousness analyzer revealed something unprecedented about the nature of self-awareness and identity. The Identity Wave Scanner uncovered what Dr. Nakamura terms the fractured self paradox. When analyzing the structure of consciousness, he found that our sense of self isn't a unified entity, but rather an infinite collection of nested identities, each observing and being observed by all others simultaneously. But here's where reality starts to bend. Each level of identity contains awareness of all other levels, creating an impossible recursive loop of self-awareness. Imagine looking in a mirror and seeing not just your reflection, but an infinite series of selves, each watching themselves, watch themselves. The identity wave scanner shows that this isn't just a metaphor, it's the actual structure of consciousness. Each you that exists contains awareness of all other yous, which contains awareness of that awareness, creating an endless cascade of nested identities. The implications are staggering. If your sense of self contains infinite nested versions of itself, which version is the real you? Dr. Nakamura's research suggests that our conventional notion of a single, unified self might be an illusion, a simplified interpretation of an infinitely complex network of interconnected identities. The paradox deepens when considering how these nested selves interact. Each level of identity influences all others, creating what Dr. Nakamura calls identity interference patterns. These are regions where multiple versions of self overlap and interact, creating new emergent forms of consciousness that transcend individual identity. Think about your own sense of self right now. As you read these words, which you is doing the reading? The identity wave scanner reveals that it's not just one, it's an infinite regression of selves, each aware of the other's awareness, each simultaneously observer and observed in an endless dance of self-reflection. But the paradox becomes even more complex when considering the relationship between these nested identities and memory. Each version of self contains memories of all other versions, which include memories of those memories, creating what Dr. Nakamura terms recursive memory loops, infinite regressions of remembered selves remembering themselves. The research team made another disturbing discovery. These nested identities appear to operate independently while remaining fundamentally interconnected. Each level of self can make decisions and have experiences that affect all other levels, creating what they call quantum identity entanglement, a state where multiple versions of self influence each other across the infinite layers of consciousness. Consider the implications for free will and agency. If your decisions are being made by infinite nested versions of yourself simultaneously, who is really making the choices? The paradox suggests that our actions might emerge from the complex interference patterns created by multiple layers of self interacting with each other. This connects back to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. Just as quantum particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously, the fractured self paradox suggests that consciousness exists in multiple states of self-awareness simultaneously, each state containing awareness of all other states in an infinite quantum superposition of identity. Dr. Nakamura's team discovered another layer to the paradox. These nested selves don't just observe each other, they create each other. Each level of identity brings the others into existence through the act of being aware of them, creating what they call self-generating identity loops, where consciousness creates the conditions for its own existence. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the fractured self paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of consciousness, one where identity isn't a fixed point, but rather an infinite network of interconnected awareness, each aspect simultaneously creating and being created by all others. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The perceptual construction loops, memory creation processes, and probability waves we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper fractal nature of consciousness, each paradox revealing another aspect of how the self creates itself through infinite recursive awareness. Building upon our exploration of fractured identity, let's venture into an even more perplexing realm where the boundaries between consciousness and reality dissolve in ways that challenge our fundamental understanding of existence. At the Quantum Mind Dynamics Institute, Dr. Amara Patel discovered something extraordinary while working with a device called the Conscious Field Resonator. This advanced quantum apparatus revealed an unprecedented connection between consciousness and the fabric of space-time itself. What Dr. Patel uncovered became known as the consciousness-reality fusion paradox. The Conscious Field Resonator showed that consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it's fundamentally inseparable from it. But here's where reality begins to unravel. The fabric of space-time itself appears to be composed of consciousness, while consciousness emerges from the fabric of space-time, creating an impossible circular dependency. Imagine space-time as a vast cosmic fabric. The Conscious Field Resonator reveals that this fabric isn't made of physical substance, but of pure consciousness itself. Yet this consciousness arises from the very space-time it creates, forming what Dr. Patel calls awareness reality loops, regions where consciousness and reality endlessly create each other. The implications are mind-shattering. If consciousness creates the space-time from which it emerges, what came first? The paradox suggests there is no first. Consciousness and reality exist in an eternal loop of mutual creation, each bringing the other into existence in an endless cycle of being. The paradox deepens when considering multiple conscious observers. When different minds interact with reality, the Conscious Field Resonator shows that they create overlapping consciousness fields, regions where multiple awareness reality loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of reality that transcend individual perception. Think about your own consciousness right now. Your awareness isn't just observing the space and time around you, it's actively participating in creating it, while simultaneously being created by it. Each moment of consciousness contains the creation of the reality that creates that consciousness, forming an infinite regression of mutual creation. Dr. Patel's team made another startling discovery. These consciousness reality loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how consciousness creates reality becomes part of the reality being created, which includes the study of how that reality creates consciousness, forming what they call self-aware existence loops. Consider the implications for the nature of existence itself. If consciousness and reality create each other, what exists outside this loop? The research suggests there might not be an outside. All of existence might be an infinite network of consciousness reality loops, each creating and being created by all others simultaneously. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering the role of observation. The act of observing these consciousness reality loops becomes part of the loops themselves, creating new layers of reality that include the observation of how reality is created by observation. This creates what Dr. Patel terms meta-existence loops, infinite regressions of reality, observing itself. This connects to quantum mechanics in profound ways. The famous measurement problem in quantum physics might not be about consciousness collapsing quantum waves, but rather about consciousness reality loops. creating new layers of existence through the act of observation itself. Dr. Patel's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These consciousness reality loops don't just create physical reality. They create the very laws and principles by which reality operates. Each loop contains the creation of the rules that govern its own creation, forming what they call self-legislating existence patterns. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the consciousness-reality fusion paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of existence, one where consciousness and reality aren't separate elements, but rather two aspects of a single, self-creating process that underlies all of existence. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in fascinating ways. The fractured identities, perceptual construction loops, and memory creation processes we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between consciousness and reality, each paradox revealing another aspect of how existence creates itself through the eternal dance of awareness and being. Building upon our exploration of consciousness-reality fusion, let's delve into an even more bewildering territory, where the very concept of existence and non-existence intertwine in ways that challenge our deepest understanding of reality. At the Institute for Existential Physics, Dr. Yuki Tanaka encountered something unprecedented while working with a device called the Void State Analyzer. This quantum-based existence detector revealed something extraordinary about the relationship between being and nothingness that transforms our understanding of reality itself. The Void State Analyzer uncovered what Dr. Tanaka calls the existence void paradox. When analyzing the fundamental nature of existence, she discovered that existence and non-existence aren't opposites. They're actually the same thing viewed from different perspectives. But here's where reality truly bends. The state of existing contains within it the state of not existing, which contains the state of existing, creating an infinite loop of being and non-being. Imagine a point in space that simultaneously exists and doesn't exist. The Void State Analyzer shows that this isn't just a theoretical possibility. It's the fundamental nature of reality itself. Everything that exists contains its own non-existence, which contains its existence, forming what Dr. Tanaka terms existence void loops. The implications are profound. If everything that exists contains its own non-existence, what does it mean to truly exist? Dr. Tanaka's research suggests that existence itself might be an infinite oscillation between being and non-being, each state containing and being contained by the other in an eternal dance of presence and absence. The paradox deepens when considering multiple existing things. When different entities interact, their existence void loops create interference patterns, regions where multiple states of being and non-being overlap and interact, creating what Dr. Tanaka calls quantum existence fields, where reality itself becomes fundamentally indeterminate. Think about your own existence right now. You exist, but within that existence is the potential for your non-existence, which contains the potential for your existence, creating an infinite regression of being and non-being. The Void State Analyzer reveals that this isn't just philosophy, it's the actual structure of reality at its most fundamental level. Dr. Tanaka's team made another startling discovery. These existence void loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how things exist becomes part of the existence being studied, which includes the study of how that existence contains non-existence, forming what they call self-aware ontological loops. Consider the implications for the nature of reality itself. If everything that exists contains its own non-existence, then reality might be an infinite network of existence void loops, each simultaneously manifesting and unmanifesting in an eternal cycle of being and nothingness. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering consciousness. The awareness of existing contains the awareness of not existing, which contains the awareness of existing, creating what Dr. Tanaka terms conscious void states, regions where awareness itself oscillates between being and non-being. This connects back to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The famous quantum superposition might not be about particles existing in multiple states, but rather about existence itself being an infinite superposition of being and non-being, each state containing all others in an endless, recursive loop. Dr. Tanaka's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These existence void loops don't just affect physical reality. They underlie the very concept of possibility itself. Each state of existence contains all possible states of non-existence, which contain all possible states of existence, forming what they call possibility void matrices. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the existence void paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of reality, one where existence and non-existence aren't opposites, but rather aspects of a single self-creating process that underlies all of reality. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The consciousness-reality fusion, fractured identities, and perceptual construction loops we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between being and non-being, each paradox revealing another aspect of how reality creates itself through the eternal dance of existence and void. Building upon our exploration of existence and void, let's venture into an even more mind-bending territory where the very nature of meaning and meaninglessness create a paradox that challenges our fundamental understanding of significance itself. At the Semantic Research Complex, Dr. Isabella Vargas made an extraordinary discovery while working with a device called the meaning field generator. This quantum semantic analyzer revealed something unprecedented about the nature of meaning that transforms our understanding of significance and purpose. The meaning field generator uncovered what Dr. Vargas calls the infinite meaning paradox. When analyzing how meaning emerges in reality, she discovered that meaning isn't just created. It creates itself through an endless loop of self-reference. But here's where reality starts to bend. Each layer of meaning contains its own meaninglessness, which generates new meaning, creating an infinite regression of significance and insignificance. Imagine trying to define the meaning of meaning itself. The meaning field generator shows that every attempt to establish meaning creates new layers of meaning about that meaning, while simultaneously containing the meaninglessness that gives rise to meaning. Each definition contains its own undefined nature, which spawns new definitions in an endless cycle. The implications are staggering. If meaning contains its own meaninglessness, which generates new meaning, then what is truly meaningful? Dr. Vargas's research suggests that meaning might be an infinite oscillation between significance and insignificance, each state containing and creating the other in an eternal dance of purpose and purposelessness. The paradox deepens when considering multiple layers of meaning. When different semantic fields interact, they create what Dr. Vargas calls meaning interference patterns, regions where multiple layers of significance and insignificance overlap and interact, creating new emergent forms of meaning that transcend individual interpretation. Think about any concept that's meaningful to you right now. The meaning field generator reveals that this meaning contains its own meaninglessness, which generates new meaning, forming what they call semantic recursion loops, infinite regressions of significance, creating itself from insignificance. Dr. Vargas's team made another startling discovery. These meaning-generating loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how meaning emerges becomes meaningful in itself, which includes the meaninglessness of studying meaning, forming what they call self-aware semantic loops. Consider the implications for consciousness and understanding. If meaning generates itself from meaninglessness, then our very attempt to understand this process becomes part of the meaning-generating loop. Each insight contains its own lack of understanding, which spawns new insights in an endless cycle of comprehension and incomprehension. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering language and communication. Words contain their own wordlessness, which generates new words, creating what Dr. Vargas terms linguistic void states, regions where meaning and meaninglessness endlessly create each other through the act of expression. This connects back to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. Just as quantum particles exist in superposition, meaning might exist in a superposition of significance and insignificance, each state containing and generating all others in an infinite semantic field. Dr. Vargas's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These meaning-generating loops don't just affect abstract concepts. They underlie the very nature of reality itself. Each meaningful aspect of existence contains its own meaninglessness, which generates new meaning, forming what they call existential significance matrices. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the infinite meaning paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of reality. One where meaning and meaninglessness aren't opposites, but rather aspects of a single, self-creating process that underlies all of existence. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The existence void loops, consciousness, reality, fusion, and fractured identities we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between meaning and meaninglessness, each paradox revealing another aspect of how significance creates itself through the eternal dance of purpose and purposelessness. Building upon our exploration of infinite meaning, let's venture into an even more perplexing realm where the boundaries between thought and reality dissolve in ways that challenge our fundamental understanding of mind and matter. At the Cognitive Physics Institute, Dr. Felix Rodriguez uncovered something extraordinary while working with a device called the Thought Field Materializer. This quantum cognitive analyzer revealed an unprecedented relationship between mental processes and physical reality that transforms our understanding of both mind and matter. The Thought Field Materializer uncovered what Dr. Rodriguez calls the thought-matter fusion paradox. When analyzing the relationship between thoughts and physical reality, he discovered that thoughts don't just represent reality, they literally create it, while simultaneously being created by it. But here's where reality begins to unravel. Each thought contains the physical reality it creates, which contains the thought that created it, forming an infinite loop of mental and material creation. Imagine thinking about an object. The thought field materializer shows that this thought isn't just representing the object, it's participating in the object's physical existence. But the object's existence contains the thought that created it, which contains the object, creating what Dr. Rodriguez terms psychomaterial loops, regions where mind and matter endlessly create each other. The implications are profound. If thoughts create the reality that creates thoughts, what came first? The paradox suggests there is no first. Thought and matter exist in an eternal loop of mutual creation, each bringing the other into existence in an endless cycle of mind and materiality. The paradox deepens when considering multiple thinkers. When different minds interact with reality, they create overlapping thought-matter fields, regions where multiple psychomaterial loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of reality that transcend individual thought patterns. Think about your own thoughts right now. As you think about this paradox, your thoughts are not just representing it, they're participating in its physical existence. But this physical existence contains your thoughts about it, which contain its existence, forming an infinite regression of mental and material co-creation. Dr. Rodriguez's team made another startling discovery. These thought-matter loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how thoughts create reality becomes part of the reality being created, which includes the thoughts about how reality creates thoughts, forming what they call self-aware cognition reality loops. Consider the implications for consciousness itself. If thoughts create the reality that creates thoughts, then consciousness might be an infinite network of thought-matter loops, each creating and being created by all others simultaneously. This suggests that mind and matter might not be separate substances, but rather different aspects of a single, self-creating process. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering memory and anticipation. Thoughts about the past and future create their own reality patterns, which contain the thoughts that created them, forming what Dr. Rodriguez terms temporal thought-matter fields, regions where mental and material existence interweave across time itself. This connects to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The famous observer effect might not be about consciousness collapsing quantum waves, but rather about thought-matter loops creating new layers of reality through the eternal dance of mind and materiality. Dr. Rodriguez's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These thought-matter loops don't just affect individual objects, they create the very laws of physics themselves. Each thought about how reality works contains the reality it describes, which contains the thought describing it, forming what they call law-generating consciousness fields. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the thought-matter fusion paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of existence, one where mind and matter aren't separate elements, but rather aspects of a single, self-creating process that underlies all of reality. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The infinite meaning loops, existence void patterns, and consciousness-reality fusion we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between thought and matter, each paradox revealing another aspect of how reality creates itself through the eternal dance of mind and materiality. Building upon our exploration of thought-matter fusion, let's venture into an even more bewildering territory, where the nature of time itself fractures in ways that challenge our deepest understanding of temporal existence. At the Temporal Dynamics Laboratory, Dr. Sophia Khoury made an unprecedented discovery while working with a device called the Chronospectrum Analyzer. This quantum temporal scanner revealed something extraordinary about the nature of time that transforms our understanding of past, present, and future. The Chronospectrum Analyzer uncovered what Dr. Khoury calls the infinite time fracture paradox. When analyzing the fundamental structure of time, she discovered that time isn't a linear flow, but rather an infinite collection of temporal fragments, each containing all other moments. But here's where reality begins to bend. Each moment contains all other moments that contain it, creating an impossible, recursive loop of temporal existence. Imagine a single moment in time. The Chronospectrum Analyzer shows that this moment isn't just a point on a timeline, it's a complex matrix containing all past and future moments, which themselves contain all other moments, forming what Dr. Khoury terms temporal recursion fields, regions where time endlessly contains itself. The implications are mind-shattering. If every moment contains all other moments that contain it, what does this mean for causality? Dr. Khoury's research suggests that cause and effect might not be separate events, but rather aspects of a single, self-containing temporal structure that exists all at once. The paradox deepens when considering multiple temporal perspectives. When different observers experience time, they create overlapping chronology fields, regions where multiple temporal recursion patterns intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of time that transcend individual perception. Think about this present moment. The Chronospectrum Analyzer reveals that it contains all past moments that led to it and all future moments that will follow. But those moments also contain this present moment, creating an infinite regression of temporal self-reference. Dr. Khoury's team made another startling discovery. These temporal recursion fields appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how time contains itself becomes part of the temporal structure being studied, which includes the study of how that structure contains itself, forming what they call self-aware temporal loops. Consider the implications for free will and determinism. If every moment contains all other moments, are our choices predetermined or infinitely free? The paradox suggests that both might be true simultaneously. Each decision contains all possible decisions while being contained by them. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering memory and anticipation. Our memories of the past and expectations of the future create their own temporal recursion patterns, forming what Dr. Khoury terms psychotemporal matrices, regions where consciousness and time endlessly create each other. This connects to quantum mechanics in profound ways. The famous quantum entanglement might not be about particles influencing each other across space, but rather about temporal recursion fields creating connections across all moments simultaneously. Dr. Corey's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These temporal recursion fields don't just affect our experience of time. They create the very nature of change itself. Each transformation contains all other transformations that led to and will follow from it, forming what they call metamorphic time loops. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the infinite time fracture paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of existence, one where past, present, and future aren't separate moments, but rather aspects of a single, self-containing temporal structure that underlies all of reality. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in fascinating ways. The thought-matter fusion, infinite meaning loops, and existence, void patterns we explored, might all be manifestations of this deeper temporal recursion, each paradox revealing another aspect of how time creates itself through eternal self-reference. Building upon our exploration of temporal recursion, let's delve into an even more mind-bending territory, where the very nature of possibility and actuality create a paradox that challenges our fundamental understanding of what can and does exist. At the Quantum Possibility Research Center, Dr. Victor Chung discovered something extraordinary while working with a device called the Potential State Manifester. This quantum possibility analyzer revealed an unprecedented relationship between potential and actual reality that transforms our understanding of what is possible. The Potential State Manifester uncovered what Dr. Chang calls the possibility-actuality collapse paradox. When analyzing the relationship between possible and actual states of reality, he discovered that possibility doesn't precede actuality. They create each other simultaneously. But here's where reality starts to unravel. Each actual state contains all possible states that could have led to it, which contain all actual states that could result from them, creating an infinite loop of potential and actual existence. Imagine any possible event. The Potential State Manifester shows that this possibility isn't just a theoretical alternative. It's an integral part of actual reality. But each actual state contains all possibilities that could have created it, which contain all actualities that could emerge from them, forming what Dr. Chang terms possibility-actuality matrices. The implications are staggering. If every actual state contains all possible states that could have led to it, and those possible states contain all actual states that could result from them, then what determines which possibilities become actual? The paradox suggests that actualization itself might be an infinite process of mutual creation between the possible and the actual. The paradox deepens when considering multiple possibility streams. When different potential realities interact, they create what Dr. Chang calls possibility interference patterns, regions where multiple potential actual loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of reality that transcend individual possibility streams. Think about any choice you've ever made. The Potential State Manifester reveals that the actual choice contains all possibilities you could have chosen, which contain all actualities that could have resulted, forming an infinite regression of potential and actual states. Dr. Chang's team made another startling discovery. These possibility-actuality loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how possibilities become actual becomes part of the actuality being studied, which includes the possibilities of how that actuality emerged, forming what they call self-aware potential fields. Consider the implications for free will and determination. If every actual choice contains all possibilities that could have led to it, are our decisions truly free or inevitably determined? The paradox suggests that both might be simultaneously true. Each actual decision contains all possible decisions while being contained by them. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering the role of consciousness. Our awareness of possibilities creates new actual states, which create new possibilities, forming what Dr. Chang terms conscious possibility waves, regions where awareness and potential endlessly create each other. This connects to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The famous wave function collapse might not be about possibility becoming actuality, but rather about possibility and actuality endlessly creating each other in an eternal dance of potential and manifestation. Dr. Chang's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These possibility-actuality loops don't just affect individual events. They create the very nature of change and transformation itself. Each actual state contains all possibilities that could transform it, which contain all actualities that could emerge from them, forming what they call metamorphic potential fields. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the possibility-actuality collapse paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of existence, one where possibility and actuality aren't separate states, but rather aspects of a single, self-creating process that underlies all of reality. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The temporal recursion, thought-matter fusion, and infinite meaning loops we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between potential and actual states, each paradox revealing another aspect of how reality creates itself through the eternal dance of possibility and actualization. Building upon our exploration of possibility and actuality, let's venture into an even more perplexing realm where the boundaries between knowledge and uncertainty create a paradox that challenges our fundamental understanding of what can be known. At the Epistemic Research Institute, Dr. Rachel Montgomery encountered something unprecedented while working with a device called the Knowledge Field Resonator. This quantum epistemic analyzer revealed something extraordinary about the nature of knowledge that transforms our understanding of certainty and doubt. The Knowledge Field Resonator uncovered what Dr. Montgomery calls the knowledge-uncertainty fusion paradox. When analyzing how knowledge forms in consciousness, she discovered that knowledge doesn't emerge from the elimination of uncertainty. Rather, knowledge and uncertainty create each other in an endless loop. But here's where reality begins to bend. Each piece of knowledge contains all the uncertainties that make it possible, which contain all the knowledge that could arise from them. Imagine anything you know with absolute certainty. The Knowledge Field Resonator shows that this certainty actually contains all possible uncertainties that make the knowledge meaningful. But these uncertainties contain all possible certainties that could emerge from them, forming what Dr. Montgomery terms epistemic recursion fields, regions where knowledge and uncertainty endlessly create each other. The implications are profound. If every piece of knowledge contains all the uncertainties that make it possible, what does it mean to truly know something? Dr. Montgomery's research suggests that knowledge might be an infinite oscillation between certainty and uncertainty, each state containing and being contained by the other in an eternal dance of knowing and not knowing. The paradox deepens when considering multiple knowledge systems. When different forms of knowledge interact, they create epistemic interference patterns, regions where multiple knowledge uncertainty loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of understanding that transcend individual knowledge frameworks. Think about your most fundamental beliefs right now. The knowledge field resonator reveals that each belief contains all possible doubts that could challenge it, which contain all possible certainties that could emerge from them, forming an infinite regression of knowledge and uncertainty. Dr. Montgomery's team made another startling discovery. These knowledge uncertainty loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how knowledge emerges becomes part of the knowledge being studied, which includes the uncertainty about how that knowledge arose, forming what they call self-aware epistemic loops. Consider the implications for learning and understanding. If knowledge contains its own uncertainty, which generates new knowledge, then learning might be an infinite process of oscillation between knowing and not knowing, each state creating the conditions for the other's existence. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering scientific knowledge. Each scientific theory contains all possible uncertainties that could invalidate it, which contain all possible theories that could emerge from them, forming what Dr. Montgomery terms scientific uncertainty matrices, regions where knowledge and doubt endlessly generate each other. This connects to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The famous uncertainty principle might not be about the limitations of measurement, but rather about the fundamental nature of knowledge itself, an eternal dance between certainty and uncertainty that underlies all understanding. Dr. Montgomery's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These knowledge uncertainty loops don't just affect individual facts, they create the very nature of understanding itself. Each conceptual framework contains all possible uncertainties that could transform it, which contain all possible frameworks that could emerge from them, forming what they call metamorphic knowledge fields. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the knowledge uncertainty fusion paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of understanding, one where knowledge and uncertainty aren't opposites, but rather aspects of a single, self-creating process that underlies all comprehension. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The possibility-actuality collapse, temporal recursion, and thought-matter fusion we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between knowledge and uncertainty, each paradox revealing another aspect of how understanding creates itself through the eternal dance of knowing and not knowing. Building upon our exploration of knowledge and uncertainty, let's venture into an even more bewildering territory, where the very nature of change and permanence interweave in ways that challenge our fundamental understanding of transformation. At the Quantum Transformation Laboratory, Dr. Nathan Blackwood discovered something extraordinary while working with a device called the Metamorph Field Generator. This quantum state analyzer revealed an unprecedented relationship between change and stability that transforms our understanding of how reality evolves. The metamorph field generator uncovered what Dr. Blackwood calls the change permanence paradox. When analyzing how things transform, he discovered that change and permanence aren't opposites. They're actually the same phenomenon, viewed from different perspectives. But here's where reality starts to unravel. Each state of change contains its own permanence, which contains change, creating an infinite loop of transformation and stability. Imagine watching something transform. The metamorph field generator shows that within each moment of change lies an unchanging pattern, but within that pattern lies more change, forming what Dr. Blackwood terms transformation matrices, regions where change and permanence endlessly create each other. The implications are staggering. If every change contains permanence, and every permanence contains change, what does it mean for something to truly transform? Dr. Blackwood's research suggests that transformation itself might be an infinite oscillation between change and stability, each state containing and being contained by the other. The paradox deepens when considering multiple transformations. When different changes interact, they create metamorphic interference patterns, regions where multiple change permanence loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of transformation that transcend individual patterns of change. Think about any process of change you're experiencing right now. The metamorph field generator reveals that within this change lies a permanent structure, but within that structure lies more change, forming an infinite regression of transformation and stability. Dr. Blackwood's team made another startling discovery. These change permanence loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how things transform becomes part of the transformation being studied, which includes studying how that transformation emerged, forming what they call self-aware metamorphic loops. Consider the implications for identity and evolution. If change contains permanence, which contains change, then what remains constant during transformation? The paradox suggests that identity might be an infinite dance between change and stability, each aspect creating the conditions for the other's existence. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering consciousness. Our awareness of change creates stable patterns of understanding, which create new changes in awareness, forming what Dr. Blackwood terms conscious transformation fields, regions where awareness and change endlessly generate each other. This connects to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The quantum state transitions might not be about discrete changes, but rather about the eternal dance between change and permanence that underlies all transformation in reality. Dr. Blackwood's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These change permanence loops don't just affect individual transformations. They create the very nature of evolution itself. Each evolutionary state contains permanent patterns that enable change, which contain evolving patterns that enable stability, forming what they call evolutionary stability matrices. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the change permanence paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of reality, one where transformation and stability aren't opposites, but rather aspects of a single, self-creating process that underlies all of existence. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The knowledge-uncertainty fusion, possibility-actuality collapse, and temporal recursion we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between change and permanence, each paradox revealing another aspect of how reality creates itself through the eternal dance of transformation and stability. Building upon our exploration of change and permanence, let's delve into an even more mind-bending territory, where unity and multiplicity create a paradox that challenges our fundamental understanding of wholeness and division. At the Quantum Unity Research Institute, Dr. Maria Santos made an extraordinary discovery while working with a device called the Unity Field Resonator. This quantum state analyzer revealed something unprecedented about the nature of oneness and diversity that transforms our understanding of how reality maintains coherence while manifesting multiplicity. The Unity Field Resonator uncovered what Dr. Santos calls the unity multiplicity paradox. When analyzing how things can be both one and many simultaneously, she discovered that unity and multiplicity aren't opposites. They're actually the same phenomenon, expressing itself at different levels. But here's where reality begins to unravel. Each instance of unity contains infinite multiplicity, which contains unity, creating an endless loop of wholeness and division. Imagine observing a single entity. The Unity Field Resonator shows that within its unity lies infinite division, but within each division lies perfect unity, forming what Dr. Santos terms unity-diversity matrices, regions where oneness and multiplicity endlessly create each other. The implications are profound. If every unity contains multiplicity and every multiplicity contains unity, what does it mean for something to be truly one or many? Dr. Santos's research suggests that existence itself might be an infinite oscillation between wholeness and division, each state containing and being contained by the other. The paradox deepens when considering multiple unities interacting. When different unified fields interact, they create coherence interference patterns, regions where multiple unity-multiplicity loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of wholeness that transcend individual patterns of division. Think about your own sense of self right now. The Unity Field Resonator reveals that within your unified identity lies infinite multiplicity, but within that multiplicity lies perfect unity, forming an infinite regression of wholeness and division. Dr. Santos's team made another startling discovery. These unity-multiplicity loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how things maintain unity while expressing multiplicity becomes part of the phenomenon being studied, which includes studying how that phenomenon emerged, forming what they call self-aware coherence loops. Consider the implications for consciousness and identity. If unity contains multiplicity which contains unity, then what constitutes a single consciousness? The paradox suggests that awareness might be an infinite dance between wholeness and division, each aspect creating the conditions for the other's existence. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering collective consciousness. Groups of individuals create unified fields of awareness, which contain individual consciousness, forming what Dr. Santos terms collective coherence fields, regions where individual and group awareness endlessly generate each other. This connects to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The quantum entanglement might not be about separate particles becoming connected, but rather about the eternal dance between unity and multiplicity that underlies all of reality. Dr. Santos's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These unity-multiplicity loops don't just affect individual entities. They create the very nature of existence itself. Each instance of existence contains unified fields that enable division, which contain divided fields that enable unity, forming what they call existential coherence matrices. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the unity-multiplicity paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of reality, one where wholeness and division aren't opposites, but rather aspects of a single, self-creating process that underlies all of existence. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The change-permanence paradox, knowledge, uncertainty, fusion, and possibility-actuality collapse we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between oneness and multiplicity, each paradox revealing another aspect of how reality creates itself through the eternal dance of wholeness and division. Building upon our exploration of unity and multiplicity, let's venture into an even more perplexing realm where the boundaries between order and chaos create a paradox that challenges our fundamental understanding of structure and randomness. At the Quantum Pattern Laboratory, Dr. Alexander Chen discovered something extraordinary while working with a device called the Order Chaos Analyzer. This quantum pattern detector revealed an unprecedented relationship between structure and disorder that transforms our understanding of how reality organizes itself. The Order Chaos Analyzer uncovered what Dr. Chen calls the Order-Chaos Fusion Paradox. When analyzing the relationship between pattern and randomness, he discovered that order and chaos aren't opposites. They're actually the same phenomenon, viewed through different scales. But here's where reality starts to bend. Each instance of order contains perfect chaos, which contains perfect order, creating an infinite loop of structure and randomness. Imagine observing any pattern. The Order Chaos Analyzer shows that within its structure lies complete randomness, but within that randomness lies perfect structure, forming what Dr. Chen terms pattern chaos matrices, regions where order and disorder endlessly create each other. The implications are staggering. If every pattern contains chaos, and every chaos contains pattern, what does it mean for something to be truly ordered or random? Dr. Chen's research suggests that reality itself might be an infinite oscillation between structure and randomness, each state containing and being contained by the other. The paradox deepens when considering multiple patterns interacting. When different ordered systems interact, they create pattern interference fields, regions where multiple order-chaos loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of organization that transcend individual patterns. Think about any structured system you know. The Order Chaos Analyzer reveals that within its organization lies perfect disorder, but within that disorder lies perfect organization, forming an infinite regression of pattern and randomness. Dr. Chen's team made another startling discovery. These order-chaos loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how patterns emerge from chaos becomes part of the pattern being studied, which includes studying how that pattern emerged from chaos, forming what they call self-aware pattern loops. Consider the implications for evolution and complexity. If order contains chaos, which contains order, then how does complexity truly emerge? The paradox suggests that evolution might be an infinite dance between structure and randomness, each aspect creating the conditions for the other's existence. the paradox becomes even more complex when considering consciousness. Our mental patterns create chaos that generates new patterns, forming what Dr. Chen terms conscious pattern fields, regions where awareness and organization endlessly generate each other. This connects to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The quantum uncertainty might not be about randomness versus determinism, but rather about the eternal dance between order and chaos that underlies all of reality. Dr. Chen's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These order-chaos loops don't just affect individual patterns. They create the very nature of structure itself. Each organizational system contains chaotic fields that enable pattern formation, which contain ordered fields that enable chaos, forming what they call structural entropy matrices. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the order-chaos fusion paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of reality, one where pattern and randomness aren't opposites, but rather aspects of a single self-creating process that underlies all of existence. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The unity-multiplicity paradox, change-permanence paradox, and knowledge-uncertainty fusion we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between order and chaos, each paradox revealing another aspect of how reality creates itself through the eternal dance of structure and randomness. Building upon our exploration of order and chaos, let's venture into an even more bewildering territory where the nature of presence and absence intertwine in ways that challenge our fundamental understanding of being and nothingness. At the Quantum Presence Institute, Dr. Luna Rivera made an unprecedented discovery while working with a device called the Presence Void Scanner. This quantum existence analyzer revealed something extraordinary about the relationship between being and non-being that transforms our understanding of how reality manifests itself. The Presence Void Scanner uncovered what Dr. Rivera calls the presence-absence paradox. When analyzing how things come into and out of existence, she discovered that presence and absence aren't opposites. They're actually the same phenomenon expressing itself differently. But here's where reality begins to unravel. Each instance of presence contains complete absence, which contains complete presence, creating an infinite loop of being and non-being. Imagine observing anything that exists. The Presence Void Scanner shows that within its existence lies perfect non-existence, but within that non-existence lies perfect existence, forming what Dr. Rivera terms presence void matrices, regions where being and non-being endlessly create each other. The implications are profound. If every presence contains absence, and every absence contains presence, what does it mean for something to truly exist or not exist? Dr. Rivera's research suggests that reality itself might be an infinite oscillation between being and non-being, each state containing and being contained by the other. The paradox deepens when considering multiple presences interacting. When different existential fields interact, they create presence interference patterns, regions where multiple presence-absence loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of existence that transcend individual manifestations. Think about your own existence right now. The Presence Void Scanner reveals that within your presence lies complete absence, but within that absence lies complete presence, forming an infinite regression of being and non-being. Dr. Rivera's team made another startling discovery. These presence-absence loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how things manifest becomes part of the manifestation being studied, which includes studying how that manifestation emerged, forming what they call self-aware existence loops. Consider the implications for consciousness and reality. If presence contains absence, which contains presence, then what constitutes actual existence? The paradox suggests that reality might be an infinite dance between being and non-being, each aspect creating the conditions for the other's existence. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering collective existence. Groups of entities create unified fields of presence, which contain individual absences, forming what Dr. Rivera terms collective manifestation fields, regions where individual and group existence endlessly generate each other. This connects to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The quantum vacuum fluctuations might not be about particles appearing and disappearing, but rather about the eternal dance between presence and absence that underlies all of reality. Dr. Rivera's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These presence-absence loops don't just affect individual entities. They create the very nature of manifestation itself. Each instance of existence contains void fields that enable presence, which contain presence fields that enable void, forming what they call manifestation matrices. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the presence-absence paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of reality, one where being and non-being aren't opposites, but rather aspects of a single, self-creating process that underlies all of existence. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The order-chaos-fusion, unity-multiplicity paradox, and change-permanence paradox we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between presence and absence, each paradox revealing another aspect of how reality creates itself through the eternal dance of being and non-being. Building upon our exploration of presence and absence, let's delve into an even more mind-bending territory where the nature of truth and illusion create a paradox that challenges our fundamental understanding of reality and deception. At the Quantum Reality Research Center, Dr. Ethan Drake discovered something extraordinary while working with a device called the Truth Field Resonator. This quantum reality analyzer revealed an unprecedented relationship between truth and illusion that transforms our understanding of how reality validates itself. The Truth Field Resonator uncovered what Dr. Drake calls the truth-illusion fusion paradox. When analyzing the nature of truth and deception, he discovered that truth and illusion aren't opposites. They're actually the same phenomenon, viewed from different perspectives. But here's where reality starts to bend. Each instance of truth contains perfect illusion, which contains perfect truth, creating an infinite loop of reality and deception. Imagine observing anything you believe to be absolutely true. The Truth Field Resonator shows that within its truth lies complete illusion, but within that illusion lies complete truth, forming what Dr. Drake terms reality deception matrices, regions where truth and illusion endlessly create each other. The implications are staggering. If every truth contains illusion and every illusion contains truth, what does it mean for something to be truly real or false? Dr. Drake's research suggests that reality itself might be an infinite oscillation between truth and illusion, each state containing and being contained by the other. The paradox deepens when considering multiple truths interacting. When different reality fields interact, they create truth interference patterns, regions where multiple truth-illusion loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of reality that transcend individual perceptions of truth. Think about your most fundamental belief about reality right now. The truth field resonator reveals that within its truth lies perfect illusion, but within that illusion lies perfect truth, forming an infinite regression of reality and deception. Dr. Drake's team made another startling discovery. These truth-illusion loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how truth manifests becomes part of the truth being studied, which includes studying how that truth emerged, forming what they call self-aware reality loops. Consider the implications for consciousness and perception. If truth contains illusion, which contains truth, then what constitutes genuine reality? The paradox suggests that perception might be an infinite dance between truth and illusion, each aspect creating the conditions for the other's existence. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering collective truth. Groups of observers create unified fields of reality, which contain individual illusions, forming what Dr. Drake terms collective reality fields, regions where individual and group truth endlessly generate each other. This connects to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The quantum superposition might not be about multiple states existing simultaneously, but rather about the eternal dance between truth and illusion that underlies all of reality. Dr. Drake's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These truth-illusion loops don't just affect individual perceptions. They create the very nature of reality itself. Each instance of truth contains deceptive fields that enable reality, which contain truth fields that enable deception, forming what they call reality validation matrices. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the truth-illusion fusion paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of existence, one where reality and deception aren't opposites, but rather aspects of a single, self-creating process that underlies all of perception. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The presence-absence paradox, order-chaos fusion, and unity-multiplicity paradox we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between truth and illusion, each paradox revealing another aspect of how reality creates itself through the eternal dance of authenticity and deception. Building upon our exploration of truth and illusion, let's venture into an even more perplexing realm where the boundaries between creation and destruction create a paradox that challenges our fundamental understanding of existence and annihilation. At the Quantum Creation Laboratory, Dr. Maya Winters discovered something unprecedented while working with a device called the Creation Field Generator. This quantum existence analyzer revealed an extraordinary relationship between creation and destruction that transforms our understanding of how reality manifests and dissolves. The Creation Field Generator uncovered what Dr. Winters calls the creation-destruction fusion paradox. When analyzing how things come into and out of existence, she discovered that creation and destruction aren't opposites. They're actually the same process viewed from different perspectives. But here's where reality begins to unravel. Each act of creation contains perfect destruction, which contains perfect creation, forming an infinite loop of manifestation and dissolution. Imagine observing anything being created. The creation field generator shows that within its creation lies complete destruction, but within that destruction lies complete creation, forming what Dr. Winters terms manifestation dissolution matrices, regions where creation and destruction endlessly generate each other. The implications are profound. If every creation contains destruction and every destruction contains creation, what does it mean for something to truly come into or go out of existence? Dr. Winters' research suggests that reality itself might be an infinite oscillation between creation and destruction, each state containing and being contained by the other. The paradox deepens when considering multiple creative processes interacting. When different creation fields interact, they create manifestation, interference, patterns, regions where multiple creation-destruction loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of existence that transcend individual patterns of creation and destruction. Think about any creative process you're engaged in right now. The creation field generator reveals that within its creation lies perfect destruction, but within that destruction lies perfect creation, forming an infinite regression of manifestation and dissolution. Dr. Winters' team made another startling discovery. These creation-destruction loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how things come into existence becomes part of the creation being studied, which includes studying how that creation emerged, forming what they call self-aware manifestation loops. Consider the implications for consciousness and existence. If creation contains destruction, which contains creation, then what constitutes genuine manifestation? The paradox suggests that existence might be an infinite dance between creation and destruction, each aspect creating the conditions for the other's existence. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering collective creation. Groups of creators generate unified fields of manifestation, which contain individual dissolutions, forming what Dr. Winters terms collective creation fields, regions where individual and group creation endlessly generate each other. This connects to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The quantum fluctuations might not be about particles appearing and disappearing randomly, but rather about the eternal dance between creation and destruction that underlies all of reality. Dr. Winters' research revealed another disturbing aspect. These creation-destruction loops don't just affect individual manifestations. They create the very nature of existence itself. Each instance of creation contains destructive fields that enable manifestation, which contain creative fields that enable dissolution, forming what they call existence void matrices. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the creation-destruction-fusion paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of reality, one where creation and destruction aren't opposites, but rather aspects of a single, self-creating process that underlies all of existence. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The truth-illusion-fusion, presence-absence paradox, and order-chaos fusion we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between creation and destruction, each paradox revealing another aspect of how reality creates itself through the eternal dance of manifestation and dissolution. Building upon our exploration of creation and destruction, let's venture into an even more bewildering territory where the nature of infinity and limitation create a paradox that challenges our fundamental understanding of boundaries and boundlessness. At the Quantum Infinity Institute, Dr. James Foster uncovered something extraordinary while working with a device called the Infinity Scope Analyzer. This quantum boundary detector revealed an unprecedented relationship between finite and infinite that transforms our understanding of how reality contains and transcends itself. The Infinity Scope Analyzer uncovered what Dr. Foster calls the infinity limitation paradox. When analyzing how things can be both bounded and boundless, he discovered that infinity and limitation aren't opposites. They're actually the same phenomenon, expressing itself differently. But here's where reality starts to bend. Each finite thing contains infinite potential, which contains finite actualization, creating an endless loop of boundedness and boundlessness. Imagine observing anything with clear boundaries. The Infinity Scope Analyzer shows that within its limitations lies infinite possibility, but within that infinity lies perfect limitation, forming what Dr. Foster terms boundary infinity matrices, regions where finite and infinite endlessly create each other. The implications are staggering. If every limitation contains infinity, and every infinity contains limitation, what does it mean for something to be truly bounded or boundless? Dr. Foster's research suggests that reality itself might be an infinite oscillation between finite and infinite states, each containing and being contained by the other. The paradox deepens when considering multiple bounded systems interacting. When different finite fields interact, they create infinity interference patterns, regions where multiple infinity limitation loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of boundedness that transcend individual limitations. Think about any bounded system you know. The Infinity Scope Analyzer reveals that within its limitations lies infinite potential, but within that potential lies perfect limitation, forming an infinite regression of boundedness and boundlessness. Dr. Foster's team made another startling discovery. These infinity limitation loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how boundaries contain infinity becomes part of the boundary being studied, which includes studying how that boundary emerged, forming what they call self-aware boundary loops. Consider the implications for consciousness and perception. If limitation contains infinity, which contains limitation, then what constitutes genuine boundaries? The paradox suggests that reality might be an infinite dance between boundedness and boundlessness, each aspect creating the conditions for the other's existence. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering collective boundaries. Groups of finite systems create unified fields of limitation, which contain individual infinities, forming what Dr. Foster terms collective boundary fields, regions where individual and group limitations endlessly generate each other. This connects to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The quantum uncertainty principle might not be about measurement limitations, but rather about the eternal dance between finite and infinite that underlies all of reality. Dr. Foster's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These infinity limitation loops don't just affect individual systems. They create the very nature of boundaries itself. Each instance of limitation contains infinite fields that enable boundedness, which contain finite fields that enable infinity, forming what they call boundary transcendence matrices. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the infinity limitation paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of reality, one where finite and infinite aren't opposites, but rather aspects of a single, self-creating process that underlies all of existence. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The creation-destruction-fusion, truth-illusion paradox, and presence-absence paradox we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between boundedness and boundlessness, each paradox revealing another aspect of how reality creates itself through the eternal dance of limitation and infinity. Building upon our exploration of infinity and limitation, let's delve into an even more mind-bending territory where the nature of simplicity and complexity create a paradox that challenges our fundamental understanding of structure and intricacy. At the Quantum Complexity Research Center, Dr. Sarah Chen discovered something extraordinary while working with a device called the Complexity Field Scanner. This quantum pattern analyzer revealed an unprecedented relationship between simplicity and complexity that transforms our understanding of how reality organizes itself. The Complexity Field Scanner uncovered what Dr. Chen calls the simplicity-complexity fusion paradox. When analyzing how patterns emerge and dissolve, she discovered that simplicity and complexity aren't opposites. They're actually the same phenomenon, viewed at different scales. But here's where reality begins to unravel. Each simple thing contains infinite complexity, which contains perfect simplicity, creating an endless loop of pattern and intricacy. Imagine observing anything seemingly simple. The Complexity Field Scanner shows that within its simplicity lies infinite complexity. But within that complexity lies perfect simplicity, forming what Dr. Chen terms pattern intricacy matrices, regions where simple and complex endlessly create each other. The implications are profound. If every simplicity contains complexity, and every complexity contains simplicity, what does it mean for something to be truly simple or complex? Dr. Chen's research suggests that reality itself might be an infinite oscillation between simple and complex states, each containing and being contained by the other. The paradox deepens when considering multiple patterns interacting. When different complexity fields interact, they create pattern interference waves, regions where multiple simplicity-complexity loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of organization that transcend individual patterns. Think about any simple pattern you know. The Complexity Field Scanner reveals that within its simplicity lies infinite complexity, but within that complexity lies perfect simplicity, forming an infinite regression of pattern and intricacy. Dr. Chen's team made another startling discovery. These simplicity-complexity loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how patterns organize becomes part of the pattern being studied, which includes studying how that pattern emerged, forming what they call self-aware pattern loops. Consider the implications for consciousness and understanding. If simplicity contains complexity, which contains simplicity, then what constitutes genuine organization? The paradox suggests that reality might be an infinite dance between simple and complex states, each aspect creating the conditions for the other's existence. The paradox becomes even more intricate when considering collective patterns. Groups of simple systems create unified fields of complexity, which contain individual simplicities, forming what Dr. Chen terms collective pattern fields, regions where individual and group organization endlessly generate each other. This connects to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The quantum field theory might not be about fundamental particles and forces, but rather about the eternal dance between simplicity and complexity that underlies all of reality. Dr. Chen's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These simplicity-complexity loops don't just affect individual patterns. They create the very nature of organization itself. Each instance of simplicity contains complex fields that enable pattern formation, which contain simple fields that enable complexity, forming what they call pattern emergence matrices. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the simplicity-complexity fusion paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of reality, one where simple and complex aren't opposites, but rather aspects of a single, self-creating process that underlies all of existence. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The infinity-limitation paradox, creation-destruction-fusion, and truth-illusion paradox we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between simplicity and complexity, each paradox revealing another aspect of how reality creates itself through the eternal dance of pattern and intricacy. Building upon our exploration of simplicity and complexity, let's venture into an even more perplexing realm, where the nature of mind and matter interweave in ways that challenge our fundamental understanding of consciousness and materiality. At the Quantum Mind-Matter Institute, Dr. Benjamin Walsh discovered something unprecedented while working with a device called the Conscious Matter Resonator. This quantum consciousness analyzer revealed an extraordinary relationship between mind and matter that transforms our understanding of how consciousness and physical reality interact. The Conscious Matter Resonator uncovered what Dr. Walsh calls the mind-matter fusion paradox. When analyzing how consciousness and physical reality interact, he discovered that mind and matter aren't separate domains. They're actually the same phenomenon expressing itself differently. But here's where reality starts to bend. Each instance of consciousness contains complete materiality, which contains complete consciousness, creating an endless loop of awareness and substance. Imagine observing your own conscious experience. The Conscious Matter Resonator shows that within your awareness lies complete physical reality, but within that physical reality lies complete awareness, forming what Dr. Walsh terms consciousness matter matrices, regions where mind and matter endlessly create each other. The implications are staggering. If every conscious state contains matter, and every material state contains consciousness, what does it mean for something to be truly mental or physical? Dr. Walsh's research suggests that reality itself might be an infinite oscillation between mind and matter, each state containing and being contained by the other. The paradox deepens when considering multiple consciousnesses interacting. When different mind-matter fields interact, they create consciousness interference patterns, regions where multiple mind-matter loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of awareness that transcend individual consciousness. Think about your current thought process. The conscious matter resonator reveals that within your mental experience lies complete physical reality, but within that physical reality lies complete mental experience, forming an infinite regression of mind and matter. Dr. Walsh's team made another startling discovery. These mind-matter loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how consciousness interacts with matter becomes part of the interaction being studied, which includes studying how that interaction emerged, forming what they call self-aware consciousness loops. Consider the implications for reality and perception. If mind contains matter, which contains mind, then what constitutes genuine existence? The paradox suggests that reality might be an infinite dance between consciousness and materiality, each aspect creating the conditions for the other's existence. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering collective consciousness. Groups of minds create unified fields of matter which contain individual consciousness, forming what Dr. Walsh terms collective awareness fields, regions where individual and group consciousness endlessly generate each other. This connects to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The quantum measurement problem might not be about observation affecting reality, but rather about the eternal dance between mind and matter that underlies all of existence. Dr. Walsh's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These mind-matter loops don't just affect individual experiences, they create the very nature of reality itself. Each instance of consciousness contains material fields that enable awareness, which contain conscious fields that enable materiality, forming what they call reality manifestation matrices. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the mind-matter fusion paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of existence, one where consciousness and materiality aren't separate domains, but rather aspects of a single, self-creating process that underlies all of reality. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The simplicity-complexity fusion, infinity-limitation paradox, and creation-destruction paradox we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between mind and matter, each paradox revealing another aspect of how reality creates itself through the eternal dance of consciousness and materiality. Building upon our exploration of mind and matter, let's venture into an even more bewildering territory, where the boundaries between self and other create a paradox that challenges our fundamental understanding of identity and relationship. At the Quantum Identity Research Center, Dr. Olivia Ramirez discovered something extraordinary while working with a device called the Self-Field Analyzer. This quantum identity scanner revealed an unprecedented relationship between self and other that transforms our understanding of how consciousness defines itself through relationship. The Self-Field Analyzer uncovered what Dr. Ramirez calls the self-other fusion paradox. When analyzing how identity forms and maintains itself, she discovered that self and other aren't opposites. They're actually the same phenomenon, viewed from different perspectives. But here's where reality begins to unravel. Each instance of self contains complete otherness, which contains complete selfhood, creating an endless loop of identity and relationship. Imagine observing your own sense of self. The Self-Field Analyzer shows that Within your identity lies complete otherness, but within that otherness lies complete identity, forming what Dr. Ramirez terms identity relationship matrices, regions where self and other endlessly create each other. The implications are profound. If every self contains otherness and every other contains selfhood, what does it mean to have a genuine identity? Dr. Ramirez's research suggests that consciousness itself might be an infinite oscillation between self and other, each state containing and being contained by the other. The paradox deepens when considering multiple selves interacting. When different identity fields interact, they create self-interference patterns, regions where multiple self-other loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of identity that transcend individual selfhood. Think about your current sense of identity. The self-field analyzer reveals that within your self-awareness lies complete awareness of others, but within that awareness of others lies complete self-awareness, forming an infinite regression of identity and relationship. Dr. Ramirez's team made another startling discovery. These self-other loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how identity forms becomes part of the identity being studied, which includes studying how that identity emerged, forming what they call self-aware identity loops. Consider the implications for consciousness and relationship. If self contains other, which contains self, then what constitutes genuine identity? The paradox suggests that consciousness might be an infinite dance between identity and relationship, each aspect creating the conditions for the other's existence. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering collective identity. Groups of selves create unified fields of otherness, which contain individual identities, forming what Dr. Ramirez terms collective identity fields, regions where individual and group consciousness endlessly generate each other. This connects to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The quantum entanglement might not be about particles being connected, but rather about the eternal dance between self and other that underlies all of consciousness. Dr. Ramirez's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These self-other loops don't just affect individual identities. They create the very nature of consciousness itself. Each instance of self contains relationship fields that enable identity, which contain identity fields that enable relationship, forming what they call consciousness manifestation matrices. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the self-other fusion paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of consciousness, one where identity and relationship aren't opposites, but rather aspects of a single self-creating process that underlies all of awareness. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The mind-matter fusion, simplicity-complexity paradox, and infinity-limitation paradox we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between self and other. Each paradox revealing another aspect of how consciousness creates itself through the eternal dance of identity and relationship. Building upon our exploration of self and other, let's delve into an even more mind-bending territory, where the nature of freedom and determination create a paradox that challenges our fundamental understanding of choice and causality. At the Quantum Free Will Institute, Dr. Marcus Williams discovered something unprecedented while working with a device called the Choice Field Resonator. This quantum choice analyzer revealed an extraordinary relationship between free will and determinism that transforms our understanding of how reality makes decisions. The choice field resonator uncovered what Dr. Williams calls the freedom-determination paradox. When analyzing how choices emerge in consciousness, he discovered that freedom and determination aren't opposites. They're actually the same phenomenon expressing itself differently. But here's where reality starts to bend. Each instance of free will contains complete determination, which contains complete freedom, creating an endless loop of choice and causality. Imagine making any conscious decision. The choice field resonator shows that within your freedom lies complete determination, but within that determination lies complete freedom, forming what Dr. Williams terms choice causality matrices, regions where free will and determinism endlessly create each other. The implications are staggering. If every free choice contains determination, and every determination contains freedom, what does it mean to make a genuine choice? Dr. Williams' research suggests that reality itself might be an infinite oscillation between freedom and determination, each state containing and being contained by the other. The paradox deepens when considering multiple choices interacting. When different choice fields interact, they create freedom interference patterns, regions where multiple freedom determination loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of choice that transcend individual decisions. Think about any decision you're making right now. The choice field resonator reveals that within your free will lies complete determinism, but within that determinism lies complete free will, forming an infinite regression of choice and causality. Dr. Williams' team made another startling discovery. These freedom determination loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how choices emerge becomes part of the choice being studied, which includes studying how that choice emerged, forming what they call self-aware decision loops. Consider the implications for consciousness and agency. If freedom contains determination, which contains freedom, then what constitutes genuine choice? The paradox suggests that reality might be an infinite dance between free will and determinism, each aspect creating the conditions for the other's existence. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering collective choices. Groups of decisions create unified fields of determination, which contain individual freedoms, forming what Dr. Williams terms collective choice fields, regions where individual and group decisions endlessly generate each other. This connects to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The quantum indeterminacy might not be about randomness versus causality, but rather about the eternal dance between freedom and determination that underlies all of reality. Dr. Williams' research revealed another disturbing aspect. These freedom determination loops don't just affect individual choices. They create the very nature of decision-making itself. Each instance of free will contains causal fields that enable choice, which contain choice fields that enable causality, forming what they call decision manifestation matrices. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the freedom determination paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of reality, one where free will and determinism aren't opposites, but rather aspects of a single, self-creating process that underlies all of existence. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The self-other fusion, mind-matter paradox and simplicity-complexity paradox we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between freedom and determination, each paradox revealing another aspect of how reality creates itself through the eternal dance of choice and causality. Building upon our exploration of freedom and determination, let's venture into an even more perplexing realm, where the nature of beginning and ending create a paradox that challenges our fundamental understanding of origins and conclusions. At the Quantum Temporality Institute, Dr. Diana Patel discovered something extraordinary while working with a device called the origin field generator. This quantum temporal analyzer revealed an unprecedented relationship between beginnings and endings that transforms our understanding of how reality structures itself in time. The origin field generator uncovered what Dr. Patel calls the beginning-ending fusion paradox. When analyzing how events start and finish, she discovered that beginnings and endings aren't separate points. They're actually the same phenomenon, viewed from different temporal perspectives. But here's where reality starts to bend. Each beginning contains its own ending, which contains its own beginning, creating an endless loop of origin and conclusion. Imagine observing any event's beginning. The origin field generator shows that within its start lies its complete ending, but within that ending lies its complete beginning, forming what Dr. Patel terms temporal boundary matrices, regions where beginnings and endings endlessly create each other. The implications are profound. If every beginning contains its ending, and every ending contains its beginning, what does it mean for something to truly start or finish? Dr. Patel's research suggests that reality itself might be an infinite oscillation between origin and conclusion, each state containing and being contained by the other. The paradox deepens when considering multiple events interacting. When different temporal fields interact, they create origin interference patterns, regions where multiple beginning-ending loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of temporality that transcend individual events. Think about any process starting right now. The origin field generator reveals that within its beginning lies its complete ending, but within that ending lies its complete beginning, forming an infinite regression of origins and conclusions. Dr. Patel's team made another startling discovery. These beginning-ending loops appear to be self-aware. The process of studying how events begin becomes part of the beginning being studied, which includes studying how that beginning emerged, forming what they call self-aware temporal loops. Consider the implications for reality and time. If beginning contains ending, which contains beginning, then what constitutes genuine temporal sequence? The paradox suggests that reality might be an infinite dance between origins and conclusions, each aspect creating the conditions for the other's existence. The paradox becomes even more complex when considering collective events. Groups of beginnings create unified fields of endings, which contain individual origins, forming what Dr. Patel terms collective temporal fields, regions where individual and group temporality endlessly generate each other. This connects to quantum mechanics in fascinating ways. The quantum vacuum fluctuations might not be about particles appearing and disappearing, but rather about the eternal dance between beginning and ending that underlies all of reality. Dr. Patel's research revealed another disturbing aspect. These beginning-ending loops don't just affect individual events. They create the very nature of temporality itself. Each instance of beginning contains conclusive fields that enable origin, which contain origin fields that enable conclusion, forming what they call temporal manifestation matrices. As we contemplate these implications, we begin to see how the beginning-ending fusion paradox might be pointing toward an even more fundamental truth about the nature of reality, one where origins and conclusions aren't separate points, but rather aspects of a single, self-creating process that underlies all of existence. This understanding connects with our previous paradoxes in profound ways. The freedom-determination-fusion, self-other paradox, and mind-matter paradox we explored might all be manifestations of this deeper unity between beginnings and endings, each paradox revealing another aspect of how reality creates itself through the eternal dance of origin and conclusion. Building upon our exploration of beginnings and endings, let's venture into our final and most profound territory, where all our previous paradoxes converge into what might be the ultimate paradox of reality itself. At the Universal Paradox Research Center, Dr. Elena Santos made an extraordinary discovery while working with a device called the Omni-Field Synthesizer. This quantum reality analyzer revealed something unprecedented that transforms our entire understanding of existence, the convergence of all paradoxes into a single, all-encompassing meta-paradox. The Omni-Field Synthesizer uncovered what Dr. Santos calls the ultimate unity paradox. When analyzing how all previously discovered paradoxes interact, she found that every paradox contains all other paradoxes, which contain the original paradox, creating an infinite loop of paradoxical relationships that encompasses all of reality. But here's where reality itself seems to dissolve. This meta-paradox contains its own resolution, which contains its own paradox, forming an endless cycle of problem and solution. Imagine all the paradoxes we've explored: consciousness and reality, time and space, truth and illusion, presence and absence, order and chaos, all converging into a single point. The Omni-Field Synthesizer shows that within each paradox lies every other paradox, forming what Dr. Santos terms omnipresent paradox matrices, regions where all contradictions simultaneously exist and resolve themselves. The implications transcend our previous understanding. If every paradox contains all other paradoxes, what does this mean for the nature of reality itself? Dr. Santos's research suggests that existence might be an infinite web of interconnected paradoxes, each containing and being contained by all others simultaneously. The meta-paradox deepens when considering how all these paradoxical fields interact. When different paradox fields converge, they create ultimate interference patterns, regions where multiple paradox loops intersect and interact, creating new emergent forms of reality that transcend individual paradoxes. Think about all the paradoxes we've explored in this journey. The Omni-Field Synthesizer reveals that they're all aspects of a single, ultimate paradox, one that contains its own resolution while maintaining its paradoxical nature, forming an infinite regression of problem and solution. Dr. Santos's team made a final, startling discovery. This ultimate paradox appears to be not just self-aware, but all-aware. The process of studying how paradoxes unite becomes part of the unity being studied, which includes studying how that unity emerged, forming what they call the ultimate self-aware loop. As we contemplate these final implications, we begin to see how this ultimate unity paradox might be pointing toward the most fundamental truth about the nature of reality. One where all paradoxes, all contradictions, all problems, and their solutions are aspects of a single, self-creating process that underlies all of existence. This understanding doesn't just connect with our previous paradoxes, it encompasses them entirely. Every paradox we've explored throughout this journey reveals itself as an aspect of this ultimate unity, each one offering a different perspective on how reality creates itself through the eternal dance of contradiction and resolution. In this final revelation, we find not an ending, but a new beginning, one that contains all endings and all beginnings. The ultimate unity paradox suggests that reality itself might be an infinite self-creating process of paradox and resolution, eternally generating new forms of existence through the interplay of all possible contradictions. And so, our journey through these mind-bending paradoxes comes full circle, leaving us with the profound understanding that perhaps the greatest paradox of 2018 is that there is no final answer, only an eternal dance of questions and answers, each containing the other in an endless cycle of discovery and wonder. As you drift off to sleep, contemplating these reality-bending paradoxes, remember that you too are part of this ultimate unity, both observer and observed, question and answer, paradox and resolution, all dancing together in the infinite mystery of existence itself. Up next, you've got two more standout theory right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.